Two Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day, enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather.
That's all they were doing, just hanging out.
But in less than an hour, their lives would drastically change as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs during an anti-Muslim protest outside of Zohran Mamdani's home. Here's what we know so far.
It's so weird, you know, when I go for when I go outside, Nate, to enjoy the weather and stroll the city, I've always got a couple bombs in my pocket.
This is Dumb Bleep of the Week. We do this every single week. The live group threw in submissions. We threw in submissions. The live group Fed Haters Club is going to vote on which one of those things is the dumbest. We have 13 items for people to choose from. So there was this thing that happened last week in New York outside the home of Mayor Mamdani. So there was a protest headed up by a guy named Jake Lang, being called like an anti-Muslim protest, and that's not really an incorrect description of what the protest was. Then some counter-protesters showed up, and they started protesting, the protesters, and then also some Muslim ISIS terrorists showed up and threw some improvised explosive devices into a crowd and got arrested. So that's the situation that happened.
We were born and raised in New York, and we want everyone here to stay in New York. You don't get to come from outside and then tell everyone else.
Now, luckily for the people there and for us, nothing happened. The bombs did not go off, which means we can now just make fun of all the dumb things that people said afterwards.
A protest was held outside Gracie Mansion, where I live with my wife, Rama. Neither of us were home at the time. This was a vile protest rooted in white supremacy entitled Stop the Islamic Takeover of New York City. I'm the first Muslim mayor of our city. Anti-Muslim bigotry is nothing new to me, nor is it anything new for the 1 million or so Muslim New Yorkers who know this city as our home. While I found this protest appalling, I will not waver in my belief that it should be allowed to happen. Ours is a free society where the right to peaceful protest is sacred. It does not belong only to those we agree with. It belongs to everyone.
Now, honestly, that last part, that's good.
There we go. Yeah.
That's good.
That's a good start.
That's a good part. He almost starts by first like, well, before I tell you about what happened, let me tell you what they were upset about. Okay? Because I don't just want to...
Had plenty of reasons to throw these bombs into the crowd.
That's what it sounded like to me. That's what I heard. Maybe that's not how he meant it. We do have Abby Phillip on CNN and the way that she first characterized what happened.
Two Republicans say Muslims don't belong here after an attempted terror attack against New York's Mayor Zohran Mamdani, and the House Speaker Mike Johnson says nothing really to condemn those comments. Another special guest is going to be with us at the table.
So this was about some Republican lawmakers saying Muslims don't belong here after an attempted attack on the life of Mayor Mamdani, you know, the first Muslim mayor of New York. And that's not what just happened there at all. Just so everyone knows, that's not the case.
Yeah, they weren't targeting the mayor.
No,
that's not. It doesn't appear that way.
I mean, that was literally worded in a way where it sounds like these people are driven by the people who tried to kill Mayor Mamdani were driven by this anti-Muslim bigotry that Republicans are pushing in the U.S.
Even though Mamdani's Muslim?
Yeah.
Is that how he says it?
Yeah. She says, I want to correct something I said last night. The bombs thrown in New York City over the weekend by ISIS-inspired attackers was thrown into a crowd of anti-Muslim protesters and not specifically targeted at Mayor Mamdani. The wording was inaccurate, and I didn't catch it ahead of time. I suck at my job. So we got that. But
Are you sure you weren't trying to spin some kind of narrative there?
Seems like that. I mean, she's reading off a teleprompter, you know? I mean, that's what's happening here. Like someone wrote that and the information was out there at the time. That's just the way they decided to word it. But speaking of the way they decide to word things, this one really takes the cake. From CNN, a post. I saw it this morning. I screenshot it. This is one of the ones where when you see it, you screenshot it immediately because there's a good chance they're going to delete it, which they did. Delete it. Yes. This is not my screenshot. There were plenty of people who took screenshots, so they were going around. So CNN's coverage of this story: 2 Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day, enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather.
That's all they were doing, just hanging out.
But in less than an hour, their lives would drastically change as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs during an anti-Muslim protest outside of Zohran Mamdani's home. Here's what we know so far.
It's so weird, you know, when I go for when I go outside, Nate, to enjoy the weather and stroll the city for the warm weather, I've always got a couple bombs in my pocket.
Yeah, you just
in case.
My response, I don't remember what my response was, but I was like,
well, it's deleted now, but
my response was like, tourists should never be forced to use their IEDs when they're out enjoying the abnormally warm weather in New York City.
God. Talk about another form of concealed carry.
What a way to characterize this. Which, hey, you know, it's America. Maybe these guys are just patriot blooded Americans.
I mean, we went to the
like,
movies.
I should be able to carry bombs in my backpack, and that's what the founding fathers would have agreed
to the
with.
Constitution, exactly.
You know,
I mean, last night we went to the movies, and when we pulled up, that's, you know, Brittany she didn't ask me if I brought my gun for protection. She's like, "Hey, did you bring the IED?
Did you bring your bomb
just in case?
Yeah,
a protest breaks out in the movie theater.
Yeah."
And I said, "Oh no, I forgot that at home."
Oh, so you left. You went back and got it so you could feel.
No,
safe.
we just went in and watched the movie,
so you could enjoy the movie.
It was fine.
CNN says a post regarding the 2 individuals arrested for throwing homemade bombs outside of New York City, Zohran Mamdani's home, failed to reflect the gravity of the incident, thereby breaching the editorial standards we require for all our reporting. It has therefore been deleted.
What an apology. It didn't reflect the gravity. No.
This post doesn't reflect the gravity of the situation.
These people threw bombs into a crowd.
These are 2 people, like literally, they didn't force this out of them. They get arrested. They go into the room and they're like, "Why'd you do this?" They're like, "ISIS." And one of them allegedly says, "We wanted this to be bigger than the Boston Marathon bombing." These are ISIS-inspired terrorist attackers in New York City.
Why do we keep saying ISIS inspired? It's just
because they weren't. They don't have their ISIS card.
Okay,
you know, that's their So the
it's all isn't it online now? You just get like a thanks for signing up.
Well, you see, they require the same kind of identification that the SAVE Act would require, and so these guys haven't been able to sign up for it, and that's one of the issues.
They don't have their real ISIS ID.
That's one of the problems. With that whole system.
All they got was an email saying, "Thanks for signing up."
Just an email. ISIS won't take that.
Yeah.
And so they just took inspiration instead.
Got it. Yeah, makes
like
sense.
they have allegiance, but I don't know.
No, Magoo, I get it. I understand why they're calling it ISIS inspired. I'm being facetious. I'm being very facetious here.
Yeah. That's why we're calling it that. So yeah, even this post doesn't reflect the gravity of that situation still at all. And the reason they can't really report the way that they would normally report about this is because this occurred and it was directed towards a guy like Jake Lang, who was organizing this protest that was like an anti-Muslim protest. And so they can't come out and like call this, you know, Islamic terrorism or whatever, you know, because it sort of, you know, not that it has to, it's not really going to give credence to like all the stuff that Jake Lang says, but they're worried that it would. You know, I still hold to the belief that you judge individuals as individuals. I'm sorry, I just can't get on board with deciding that what, you know, a certain percentage of people decide to do, and call that on the whole group. And I don't know. I just don't see that the right way. Babylon Bee had a good headline. I just put it in here. They said CNN reports on Japanese teenagers who came to Hawaii for what could have been a beautiful day at the beach. And it's a picture from Pearl Harbor. That's
perfect.
Funny. Yeah. Okay, that was number one. Number two, AK guy. Some of you guys might know who he is. Brandon Herrera is his name. And he's now the GOP nominee for Congress in Texas, their 23rd district, because the other dude dropped out because of some allegations, accused sexual harasser is what they call him. So now they can focus on AK guy. And AK guy is sort of what would happen if our podcast was way more popular and then we decided to run for office and they decided to pick and choose like 10, 15 seconds of stuff that we have said on the show before or things that we have, just different things that we've done on the show before. This is something that's going to happen. And so now he's being called like a neo-Nazi, like a Hitler supporter or whatever. There's a clip going around of him talking about having a copy of Mein Kampf, which is fine. The funny part about that is that if he would have said he had a copy of Das Kapital or something like that,
no problem.
No one would have ever said anything about it. The Communist Manifesto, no one would have ever said anything about it. And you'd be like, well, which one of these books led to the deaths of more people if you're going to attribute, books or ideas leading to the deaths of more people?
Well, it's Hitler. Of course, Nate.
Still, just no matter what.
No matter what,
It's Hitler. There's no other way of looking at that.
The hammer and sickle is a sign of freedom.
It is.
So
freedom from oppression.
Yeah.
Is what this is. So I have an AK guy section here. Now there is, first off, there are clips from a show where he does kind of like reenactments, recreations of assassinations and stuff like this. And you can imagine, almost in the way, this is him like doing let me pull this up.
My father was a drinker. Here comes the Stuka.
Now that's him trying to put a cyanide capsule in Hitler's mouth at the moment. So that doesn't really play in their favor. They're like, oh, he does a reenactment of John Wilkes Booth killing Abraham Lincoln. Stuff like that. No, I don't know if these people just never watched like a YouTube page before. It was like very YouTube channel type stuff to me. It's like when Mike Rowe would go do a Dirty Jobs thing or some of the other history type shows he would do, and they would like dress up and stuff and do like a little reenactment and all that and try to shoot scenes looking like they're, he does a dirty job. And so he like gets in there and does that only, for like assassinations and stuff like that. That's sort of how I see.
Yeah. But people
clips.
do real life reenactments of like the Civil War.
Yeah.
Where they pretend to hate black people and fight for the South. It still happens.
And so there's this 19-second clip going around from their show. What's it called? Unsubscribed or something, I think is what the show is called, where he talks about having a copy of Mein Kampf. And so there's a 19-second clip going around.
Some great points.
That's my copy at my house next to a bunch of the German stick grenades. I got the 1939 edition printed in English just because I thought it was wild that you couldn't buy it on Amazon, but you can buy the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital.
Well, this was more expensive than the...
All right, so that's the clip going around. Is that right there? You could imagine, when you see a 19-second clip...
I thought the left was against like banning books, except for Mein Kampf.
Just that one.
Okay.
That one's okay. This is a 2-hour podcast, and they have this conversation. What's actually funny is a little bit past that. This guy right here with the sleeves is like, that's a clip. Like someone's going to cut that right there.
And then they did.
Because in this conversation, they're making fun of how awful Mein Kampf is. Like that is the conversation that they're having. They're talking about how it sounds like it was like schizo, written by a crazy person. They're like ironically like making fun of it the whole time. He has a copy of it because it's like a historical text and you can't just buy it. You can't go pick it up at your local library or anything like that. They tried to like ban the book. And you've got freaking, what do you have?
I have Das Kapital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Commie.
I know.
You must be a commie. That's what's happening. I want.
By the way, a very tough read. If anybody's, it's not one you read before bed.
Not you would not recommend.
No. But I've read most of it. But it's mainly to sharpen my skills as in economy or economics. Trying to figure out what different minds think about different things, realizing they're wrong. And really sharpening skills based on people who have written down books. It doesn't, just because you read or have a copy of a book doesn't mean you agree with it. In fact, it could be necessary to read some of the literature so that you are equipped with the way in which people think about certain things, and you're better armed to defend against the ideas with truth on your side.
Absolutely.
It's so ridiculous that they use these type of tactics against people who are more informed, and just associate, a flag or a book or whatever by trying to classify somebody who doesn't qualify.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I'm gonna play a little bit of this.
Yep. Have you guys read this?
Oh, oh my God. This is
Yep.
no.
Nope.
Even better.
Try again.
Oh, I like that one. Hey. Just segment this, and you're like,
Page 447.
Well, was that a bookmark?
Have you actually read this book? It's dog shit.
Yeah, it is so
Fucking
schizo.
sucks.
It's so bad. It's all over the.
But
they're just gonna cut segments out of this. Brandon's like, yeah, I own a copy. Oh, great reading.
No, yeah.
It's just segment this, and you're like, well, here's our career.
No, yeah. Cut it.
I just thought it was funny. They actually
literally joked
about how someone's going to cut a segment out of that. So wanted to make sure we play that. That's number 2. All right, number 3. All right, so there's been, as we mentioned earlier, there's been a couple different attacks that took place. There's one that took place at Old Dominion University yesterday in Virginia, where one person was killed and the shooter also, and a couple other people injured. And the attacker in this case has got like a pretty interesting background, which you're going to hear the Norfolk Commonwealth's attorney arguing that the problem is that we don't have gun control. That's the issue.
Yeah.
This is a guy who just previously served over 7 years for basically trying to provide aid to ISIS and trying to join in on a ISIS attack. Now, it sounds like it was. I'm not trying to provide cover for the guy at all. It did sound like it was an entrapment thing. Like it was a scenario that wasn't actually going to take place. They had set up and he was trying to join in on it, whatever. And
it was a government operation.
Yeah, it was a government. Yeah, it was a government. Yeah, like the kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer kind of situation. That's what it sounds like to me. That he wanted to carry out an attack similar to the Fort Hood attack, and he served over 7 years. He was supposed to serve 10. He was let out in 2024, a little bit early. And to my knowledge, I don't have information on this yet. I feel like that's the kind of criminal record that would probably make it difficult for you to get a gun, because you do, in fact, have to do checks when you go and get a gun. There's not like this crazy loophole, except for the fact that there's 600 million guns in the U.S., and it is still pretty easy just to get one no matter what laws there are. Also, we have no idea how we got this gun that he used or anything like that. Just overall, doesn't seem like a gun control problem when this guy goes and does that. But
I'm seeing a theme here. Maybe he sympathizes with terrorists, like actual terrorists. Maybe that's a problem.
This guy, yeah, that does kind of seem to be a theme right now. I'm not sure if I read that this guy was in any way inspired by what's going on in the world right now, but it sort of seems coincidental. Maybe some people in the group have heard something about that. I actually haven't, but here's the attorney speaking at a press conference.
We live in a country where people care more about guns than they care about 6-year-old children. They care more about guns than they care about synagogue worshipers. And they care more about guns than they do about college students. What that means is that it does not matter how hard President Hemphill works, how hard the chiefs work, Somebody will be a victim eventually. It is a matter of time. And until there is the political will to break the spell of the cult of gun absolutism, you will see more incidents like this. So if you're looking for somebody to blame, don't look at anybody up here. Look at our lawmakers who don't have the courage to implement sensible gun control measures.
Yeah, look, don't blame us.
Supreme Court that enables them.
You know, we convicted this guy and put him in prison for a little bit, and he got out and committed another crime. That's not our fault.
Yeah. I don't know if he was actually in this, even in this
By
state.
the way, if I get to that level of hair loss, please make fun of me until I shave it all off.
Yeah,
I'm thinning a little bit, but so far it's it's not that. I'm not that far gone. But if I get to that place, please don't allow me to be on camera.
Or just get rid of it.
Without shaving
just
it.
do that. Or if you like that look, then just go with it. That's fine. Free country. That's fine. Okay, so that's
Especially
dumb.
when it turns to the side.
That's dumb for number 3. This doesn't seem like a gun control problem. And I also hate it when these people come out immediately after something where you've got no information on how the guy got the gun. I don't know if they knew he had a criminal record and had actually served 7 years in prison or anything like that, which would make it pretty difficult to get a gun afterwards. But they still come out and they talk about how gun control would have stopped this situation.
Isn't he a felon?
In the case
How
where...
does he get a gun? Don't we already have laws against him getting a gun?
He had to have obtained it illegally somehow.
Well, that's why guns are the problem, Nate.
Yeah,
See?
the actual guns. We should all be destroying our guns and with the spirit of patriotism to save the children is what should happen. We're going to take a brief jaunt from the random terrorist attacks that have been happening while we're talking about Virginia and talking about banning guns. And we're going to get a little bit of information on what kind of guns the people of Virginia will still be able to have after their newest law, if it actually gets enacted. I did not look to see what the vote was, but he's going to let us know. It's okay. Don't worry about it. You can still have all of these kinds of guns, you crazy people.
If you have an assault rifle, you can keep it. If you have an assault pistol, if you want to have one of these pistols with a silencer on it and a pistol grip in the front, a really big pistol, if you want to have one with a telescope on it or lasers or whatever else you want, that's okay. You just can't buy a new one. And you can't sell it to anybody. If you want to have a magazine with more than 15 bullets, you can keep that too. You just can't buy a new one. And
hey, at least he said magazine.
That's exactly what I was about to say. To his credit, he did say magazine. So,
although I guess telescope is, fits. Most people call them scope.
I guess technically scope.
Yeah.
Probably short for telescope.
Although
technically, I don't know.
Aren't telescopes usually upside down? Anyway, it's still kind of funny.
Can you get your you can keep your silencer if you want to keep your silencer?
Yeah. If you like your silencer, keep your silencer. You just can't sell it to anyone else.
And you can have 15 bullets.
And the average family of 4 is going to save $2,500 on their car insurance.
Yeah. And one of their kids
for this. Is what's his name still in the Virginia house? Nick Freitas?
Freitas, no.
Freitas? What's he doing now?
Talking about why we should do wars all over the place.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Okay,
I really like that guy on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he was cool.
But he just...
It happens.
People
sometimes that
so
war
weird
blood comes back.
Tucker Carlson's completely flipped on war. And then you've got all these other talking heads that are coming up in favor.
That's a new generation.
Yeah.
All right, number 5. Speaking of talking heads that are coming up, I think it's a head. Laura Loomer. So there was another attack that occurred yesterday where this guy rammed his truck that I believe, from what I've read so far, also had explosives in it into a Jewish temple or synagogue, or I don't really know what the difference in those two things are. So you guys know what I'm talking about. This happened up in Michigan. And no one was killed in that other than the attacker in that scenario. So that is good news, that he was the only one that was hurt. And since this was someone attacking a Jewish synagogue, Laura Loomer had some words to say. And she said, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens both said everyone needs to know where their local Shabbat is. I said their hatred would lead to people shooting up Jews in synagogues. It will likely end up being a Muslim. Talking about this attack, didn't know anything at the time. The Trump administration must start deporting these Islamic savages from our country, and we must start holding people accountable for inciting violence. So going after Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. So that's immediately a dumb thing to do, considering, number one, he didn't know for sure it was even a Muslim guy. Turned out, it was. Okay, just happened to be a Muslim guy. And number two, you don't know what his inspiration was, but you take that as an opportunity to just go after the same people you're always going after at the behest of the foreign government that you're working for. And then she also says, Tucker Carlson is getting Jews killed. There weren't any Jews killed in the thing, but
isn't this like slander?
He did actually respond to this. I don't have it, but he doesn't post much on social media or respond to anything. He doesn't really use social media, but he felt this was a time to come out and respond.
I feel like this could be easily a lawsuit.
Sort of feels like she's not leaving much of a gray area as to whether or not Tucker Carlson got people killed or whatever. She's saying he is getting these people killed. And so, yeah, maybe. She says, I will not be voting for any candidate who doesn't condemn him. I guarantee. So she's not going to vote for Trump or J.D. Vance?
Yeah.
Nothing like
Strange.
that. I guarantee today the shooter at the Jewish day school in Michigan will end up being a Muslim who believes in the same things spewed by Tucker Carlson on his podcast. Tucker is inciting people to murder Jews. He should be held accountable. I truly believe he is trying to make people murder Jews.
Jesus Christ.
This is the thing. Like, there's one freaking country that you can't talk about. That's it. You cannot disagree with the things they say or do, or the people they kill, or the way they conduct themselves. Nothing like that. There's one freaking place you can't talk about it. You could say...
No, you can talk about it. No.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's incitement. That's what this is. Okay, so inspired by Tucker Carlson, inspired by Candace Owens...
What's funny is, and I saw a recent interview. Well, I say recent. I saw it recently, but it was a previous interview that Charlie Kirk had done with a Gen Z group, and they had basically said, like, look, the people who are trying to condemn us and call us Jew haters because we speak out against the government of Israel are the ones who are actually making this problem worse. Because this kid was like, in our view, if you're going to keep calling me racist and a Jew hater, regardless of whether I am or not, it's like, okay, well, fine. Then that's what I am. You know? So it's like this level of trying to condemn people for speaking out against a particular government's actions and labeling them as something that is vile and disgusting and reprehensible is only causing more harm, or causing the harm you perpetuate as trying to squash. Like, you're the one who's actually leading to that, because the more and more you call people a certain name, the more and more they're just going to be like, well, F you then. Like, I should be allowed to speak out against a government's actions without being, grouped into a hate group of a particular person, because I don't hate anyone.
In fact, it makes you question more and more, why can I not talk bad about this country? I can talk bad about America. I can talk bad about Russia, or I could even talk bad about Iran or Iraq or the UK or anyone, but I'd talk bad about this one. And this is how I get labeled. Why is that? And then you go down that path. It makes it worse.
And
every
you see
time.
that Laura Loomer is likely funded by the Israeli government in some form or fashion.
Someone's got to pay for what she did to her face. I mean, what? I don't even think she's making that much money. Okay.
And it doesn't seem like American doctors did that.
No, we got better doctors than that. Come on.
Did she have some experimental treatment?
On a side
have
note,
her face removed?
On a side note, after talking about whether or not it was Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens, the Associated Press confirms that 4 relatives of Ayman Mohammed Ghazali, the suspect in Thursday's Michigan synagogue attack, were killed in in an Israeli strike in Lebanon on March 5th. 4 members of his family were killed in an IDF strike in Lebanon on March 5th. AP reports the strike hit the family home just after sunset as they were breaking their Ramadan fast, killing brothers Qasim and Ibrahim's 2 children, Ali and Fatima. A week later, on March 12th, Ghazali, a 41-year-old Lebanese-born U.S. citizen, rammed a vehicle into a Temple Israel synagogue in West Bloomfield, Michigan. I don't think that has anything to do with whether or not he watches Tucker Carlson's freaking podcast on YouTube. I don't think that's what happened
This
here.
guy had nothing to lose. You killed his family.
Yeah.
What do you like? This is the blowback that we've talked about multiple times. Obviously, Ron Paul has been sounding the alarm for the last 100 years almost about blowback. And it's like, look, you conduct these operations and you kill innocent people. What would you do? Like, what would you do?
Well, in this,
ask yourself, if you have family, most of you out there do, I hope, ask yourself if a government of a certain particular group decided, or maybe even accidentally dropped a bomb on your family's house and killed people you love and care about, what kind of feelings do you have inside? Like, what I can tell you as a father, like if something happened to my child, I don't know that I would be able to restrain myself. Like that, I'm just telling you, like, that's the instinct as a human being when something happens to your family. Like, what are you supposed to do?
Now, you would, in that situation, decide that the people in that Jewish temple in Michigan likely had nothing to do with the decision to kill your family in Lebanon.
Yes.
And that no one in that specific building deserves to die as a result, would probably be what you would hopefully arrive at in that situation. But after that many people in your family getting killed, who knows what kind of mental state you're in afterwards, you know? And just to do our due diligence, Israel is saying that the 2 older family members, the 2 brothers that were killed, not their kids, but the 2 brothers were members of Hezbollah. So unfortunately for their children, possibly their father and uncle were into some bad stuff. I don't know.
So we take out their kids, their innocent children.
How are we ever going to have world peace? You know?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Okay, on a completely unrelated, that was let's see, that was number 5. How about we get to number 6, completely unrelated?
That one seemed related. That seemed related to the terrorist stuff we were talking about.
That was related. This one's unrelated to the previous one. This is a video that came out last year, a year before, of IDF soldiers. I'm not going to play the whole video. I'm not going to play a lot of the video at all, of IDF soldiers taking a Palestinian prisoner, male, and raping him almost to death with a knife and different items.
Jesus.
Actually, I haven't had clarification if they went, further than that or anything. There's a video came out of them doing that.
לאזור המצולם הזה, ולוקחים אותו לקיר, אחד עם כלב, עוד 4 שעושים את החיפוש עליו, 3 שהם מגנים שמעקפים.
So in this video, they put the guy on a wall and they try to cover up what's going on with riot shields because they know there's camera in the room.
את האזור.
בתחילת החיפוש מצמידים לוחמי כוח 100 את סמך אל הקיר. הוא אזוק בידיו ורגליו ומכוסה עיניים. דקה לתוך החיפוש, להציר על הברכיים. הסרטונים ללא שמע, אבל אפשר לראות את הכלב סוער מאוד. 2 דקות לתוך הסרטון, אחד הלוחמים מבצע תנועות שמאוחר יותר איש לא ידע להסביר אותן. סמך חוזר לשכב על הרצפה, לדברי הלוחמים בשלב הזה הוא מתנגד לחיפוש. עכשיו, הכלבן מתחלף עם חברו.
So the video came out because, let me see here, let me get to Israel military's top lawyer released it because they believed that these guys needed to be held responsible. And these guys did have charges against them. Interesting enough, there were protests in Israel over this. The protests were over the arrest of the military members who did this to the guy. They ended up calling it, this is probably not what the protesters called it, but everyone called it a right to rape protest because they were upset that these guys were going to get in trouble. And so we know what was done to the guy. The details are very grotesque and disgusting, what happened to him. And the IDF decided yesterday, the day before, to drop the indictment against the soldiers that were videotaped sexually abusing the detainee. Let me get down to the bottom here. The soldiers were accused of sexually assaulting a Palestinian detainee, including sodomizing him with a sharp object. Medical reports found the detainee suffered fractured ribs, chest trauma, and a perforated rectum that required surgery. The Israeli soldiers claimed they were acting in self-defense.
Yeah, I mean, they're part of the Israeli defense team.
Anytime.
Or Israeli Defense Federation. It's in the name.
Force.
Sorry, force.
Yeah, anytime I'm acting in self-defense, I rape the person with a knife.
Yeah.
How are they going to learn?
You have an IED in your pocket.
Yeah.
And a knife for self-defense. And
Israel,
you don't stab the person in the neck or, the chest or stomach or anything like that. It's straight into the asshole for you.
That's what you do.
For self-defense purposes.
The defense minister, Israel Katz, said after the indictment was dropped on these soldiers, justice has been done. I welcome the decision of the chief military prosecutor, Major General Who Cares, to close the cases against the IDF soldiers and to cancel the indictment against them. This trial was born in sin by the previous military advocate general, using a blood libel against IDF soldiers and criminal investigation methods. And I'm glad, this is why you can never listen to anyone who claims that someone's committing a blood libel against Jews. Like, you're on tape raping someone almost to death who was your prisoner. And we're not supposed to do that. It's not what civilized people do. It's not how you treat people who you have imprisoned, obviously. We're only here because God said that we're the ones who are supposed to be here, and we're not supposed to anally rape someone almost to death when they are our prisoner. But if you decide that you're going to charge these people with crimes that do exist, that they committed, that is a blood libel against the Jews.
Yeah. He says here the role of the IDF's legal system is to protect and safeguard the IDF soldiers who engage heroically. This is heroic sodomization, Nate. Heroic sodomization and war against these cruel monsters and not the rights of the terrorists of Hamas. See, these terrorists, they're not human.
Yeah.
They're monsters.
We're human. You're not.
Exactly.
Oh, God. Help us all, please. Oh, now we get to number 7.
God, what a screenshot. This in and of itself just looks like a dumb bleep.
Number 7 is Ben Shapiro. These are all in no particular order.
All unrelated.
It felt like they all fell together.
Yeah.
It's just in the
you
order
just had
that
AI order
that I had opened the files,
screenshots and everything.
And so this is Ben Shapiro. There's a lot of stuff that we could say about Ben Shapiro for dumb bleep number whatever this is. There's a big feud going on now between Ben Shapiro and Megyn Kelly and Piers Morgan and Tucker Carlson, and it all revolves.
Sure, Candace Owens is in there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean she's mixing it up in there anytime she can, and it's just so wild to me that basically you're okay. So let's exclude maybe Candace Owens from the conversation a little bit. It's just so crazy to me that basically this can happen over your criticism of a foreign government, and that it's almost like I don't know if Israel wants to destroy the United States or if they just want to destroy the Republican Party or the right-wing movement in the United States.
What would you do if
It's
somebody
getting ripped apart right now?
What would you do if somebody called Dak Prescott a Nazi?
Nothing. I'd probably make fun of him.
No, but I mean, that's your team, man. I mean,
that's my team.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of Dak Prescott that much. I would point out the irony of him being a black Nazi who's getting paid, $65 million a year. But I'd probably.
I'm just saying that's how these people treat.
I wouldn't destroy a movement
like
over
Israel
it.
can do no wrong. It's insane to me.
It's like the one thing that you can't let go. And it's because I think people like Ben Shapiro and some of the others see this anti-Semitism and hatred for Jews as like the number one issue on planet Earth. And like, that's what all the world's problems revolve around, is that some people don't like Jews and some people don't like Israel. And just the whole world is going to end because this happens or is happening. It's not the biggest problem in the world. It's just literally not. There are so many other big problems, which is what bothers me so much, that people could find a way to kind of let go. Like, oh, Tucker says a lot of, what I consider to be outlandish things about Israel. But unfortunately, because of my brain, I call them blood libel or something like that. And then, and so he says a lot of stuff like that, but we agree on so many other things, and we share this movement, we share a bunch of the same fans and all that. And Megyn Kelly and I have been friends for a long time. Like, no, when it comes to Israel, they just won't let it slide. Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson would be friends with Ben Shapiro if he decided that they could all be friends. They'd still be friends. Not anymore. No, they would have a conversation, and they would agree to disagree, and they would still be cordial with one another. They would still have a business relationship with one another, and they'd still be able to coexist together. Not on Ben Shapiro's side, though. They have committed the sin, the number one sin, etched in stone, which is you don't talk bad about Israel. You just don't.
No matter what they do.
You can talk bad about any other country on planet Earth as much as you want. Not Israel. At all. It's so crazy to me. That doesn't have much to do with the clip I'm about to play. I just saw this as the intro for one of his episodes a couple shows ago, where he starts with like a fake commercial for someone who's suffering from a certain ailment. And so this is that intro.
Are you suffering from ideological bloat, verbal diarrhea, brain cramps, all over the current Trump action against Iran? This is a medical warning. You may be suffering from IPS, Iranian propaganda syndrome. Left untreated, it may result in stupidity, click whoring, an awkward giggle. To understand just what's actually going on, I want to start with the truth. This war is justified, it will be short, and we will win. Okay, so let's talk about the justification for the war. A lot of people are...
Okay.
I forgot how gay he is sometimes.
Yeah, and then he gets into a bunch of reasons why Israel could potentially be scared of Iran. That's what he talks about afterwards.
Yeah, why this war is justified.
This idea that you cannot be skeptical of this war, you can't be against it unless you were giving in to Iranian propaganda. That is such a ridiculous idea.
I didn't realize Iranian propaganda could reach the shores.
That's just how powerful they are. They've reached propaganda community.
Yeah.
They it just can't happen.
I thought we were supposed to be fearful of like the Russian bots.
Well, not right now.
It's the Iranian.
Well, we should, because they're helping Iran.
The Iranian, they have bots too?
They got bots.
Okay.
Everyone's got bots. So yeah, that's really dumb. I'm going to skip over some of the other Ben Shapiro stuff. I find this all to be ridiculous. So we can move on to number 8. I think we're making decent time right now. We're 50 minutes in. We're on number 8. There's only like 18 left. So here we go. I called this one Tomahawk-gate for number 8. So there was a missile that hit a school in Iran. Everyone knows that story. Right now, according to various media outlets, there is a preliminary inquiry and report where the top line finding is that it was the U.S. that hit the building. The thing that they are investigating are how it happened. That's according to current reports on the matter. We don't have the full investigation. When it comes to this situation, I tend to lean towards it being the U.S. who did it, basically because it happened at the time that we were conducting like our initial strikes and hitting other buildings that were in that specific area. We've talked about this plenty of times already. There are weird things about it. The missile, to me, looks strange coming in and it doesn't explode the way I would imagine it exploding. It's kind of weird overall coming in. I will admit that. And if we're wrong on this, then I'll say that we're wrong on this. I think statistically, the highest chance is that this was an accidental hit by the U.S. government. I don't want that to be the case. I would love for it to be Iran that did it, so I didn't help pay for that school full of kids that got killed. Number one, I would really like that to be the case, for it to be Iran that did it. I hope that's the outcome of this situation. I hope we can come back and make fun of this segment or segment earlier in the week and just how dumb we were assuming that it was the U.S. Because we did find out it was Iran. That's what I hope. I think it's best if the U.S. government knows that they did it for them to just come out and admit it. I think that's what's best for everyone, so we can move on and say that was an accident. It was us who did it. Clearly, it was not intentional. We're very sorry about what happened. This is fog of war. This was a building that used to be a part of a military facility, didn't get updated, something like that. I think that's better for everyone. If you want to have trust, a little bit more trust in the operations that you're carrying out. That's what I suggest. There's this guy, Matt Retardio, who's been going hard on the fact that this wasn't a Tomahawk, though. And
I love how these people just know things. By the way, this is what makes you popular.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing probably why we're not as popular as some other creators out there, is because people just come out and they know things without actually knowing them. But they pretend as if they know things. They speak as an authority on things before they actually even know the truth. And it doesn't matter. People just ignore it. They just go along with it.
Well, you're telling them what they want to hear.
As long as it fits their confirmation bias, they'll go along with it. They'll cheer you on. They're on your team now. And even if you have to correct your story later, you know, be like, oh, I messed up. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. As long as it's like, that's one thing that's frustrating about, you know, the algorithms rewarding terrible human behavior.
It's other people rewarding terrible human behavior is what the algorithms
Which is what the algorithms are derived off of. Yes. So
I blame the people.
But, you know, what are you going to do? So this guy's gaining a lot of popularity on,
maybe he was popular beforehand. I've just never seen him before. I don't. Yeah. His actual name is Matt Tardio, by the way. He says the evidence is clear. This is not a Tomahawk. And what Charlie's saying, where you leave no room to be wrong on things. There's another post where he says there's absolutely 0% chance this was a U.S. Tomahawk, things like that. And does really well. And what he points to as the evidence being clear it was not a Tomahawk is an AI analysis of a photo of the missile coming in. And it was a grainy AI analysis of a photo, and you can't really tell what angle the missile itself is pointing. That becomes important because he says the wings of the munition in question sit about 40 to 45% down the body of the munition. On a Tomahawk, the wings sit roughly 49 to 50% down the body of the munition, which my initial response was, Matt, that is not correct. No one gave the instructions at the Raytheon facility and said, see, the wings on this Tomahawk, we want to sit about 49 to 50% down the body of the munition. There's an actual answer. He's just copy and pasting the AI analysis of the situation, where it also gives him an analysis on where the wings sit on the video of the munition coming down, which is a grainy photo. And the angle of the missile itself could change your ability to judge how far down the wings are on the body of the munition as it comes down. Because you turn it away forward, closer, it's going to, you guys know how angles work, I'm sure. Don't need me to tell you that. So that's ridiculous. And he goes through this whole thing. This is all AI stuff. So the conclusion was that it was a...
all I know is A squared equals B squared in a helicopter.
Yep.
Exactly.
So that's what I learned too.
Yep.
He says this is...
no matter what your Tomahawk says.
He says this was the GPS
I
jamming...
believe Tomahawks were used by Indian chiefs.
He says this was GPS jamming of an Iranian KH-55. So the KH-55 is important here because KH-55 has an engine at the bottom of it. It's not internal like the Tomahawk. And so now it's just important to remember, he keeps going in this. I found this all to be so dumb because in the first one is like absolutely no chance, down to the percentages of where the wings sit on the body of the munition. And then he says, well, obviously this right here, that's the engine. Where I would say, no, that's a tail fin. of this thing, clearly. And in fact, he was so precise with his measurements earlier that I would like to tell him that that engine right there takes up roughly 20 to 30% of the body of the munition between the wings and the tail fin. And that's what I'm seeing in this photo, but he didn't care about that. Let's take a break here to hear from President Trump on the matter, as he was asked in a press conference earlier in the week.
Yeah. Please, go ahead.
There's footage that shows that an American missile strike and a Tomahawk missile likely destroyed that Iranian girls' school. So will the U.S. accept any responsibility?
Well, I
for
haven't
that strike?
seen it, and I will say that the Tomahawk, which is one of the most powerful weapons around, is used by, is sold and used by other countries, you know that. And whether it's Iran, who also has some Tomahawks, I wish they had more, but whether it's Iran or somebody else, the fact that a Tomahawk is very generic, it's sold to other countries, but that's being investigated right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it could have been any country.
Could have been anyone with a Tomahawk.
We just sell these weapons around the world, dude. Yeah.
Here's another question here.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Mr. President, you just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a Tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this.
Before we get to his answer here, the common response to, he didn't actually mean that Iran had a Tomahawk. That's just a name like you call this tissue Kleenex. You could call this a Stanley, which it is, but you guys get the idea.
You call this a Coke.
Sure. Yeah. You just call that. And so you call their missile a Tomahawk. Now, there is a pretty big difference. KH-55 is, I believe, an air launch missile, and not the way to the Tomahawk will be launched. But apart from that, I sort of feel like that'd be his response right now. You just said that Iran somehow got its hands on a Tomahawk. And in that case, my brain would go, no, I didn't. I said the Tomahawk was a generic thing and a lot of countries have them. That's not what I said. Come on.
But
Fake
you also
news,
said that
media.
Does Iran wishes they could get their hands on more Tomahawks?
Yeah. So here's
Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation, but Tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have Tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
Okay.
Yeah, at least he says.
Now, the last part right there, that is the proper answer. And then I would want, just say you're sorry if that's what happened. I mean, don't be like, oh, these damn dirty Iranians, these kids were going to be terrorists
Which, by the
someday.
way, to give Trump credit, in a recent interview, I think we covered this probably close to a month ago. He talked about, he did show some empathy when it came to the people who died in the ICE shootings and, said it was terrible and those types of things. So he's not unwilling, I think, to give him a little bit of credit. He's not unwilling to kind of admit some of those things, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's likely probable that if this comes out as being, of course, he doesn't want it to be America's fault, but if the evidence surmounts to a level in which he can no longer deny, then I think he's more than willing to probably take the hit. And I think what he said at the end there might be truthful.
Yeah. Well,
so,
you have to live with it.
Yeah. You have no other choice.
That's the only answer.
Yeah.
You'd have to live with it if that's the case. Now, the funny part is some people are like, oh, I didn't mean Tomahawk. And then other people who are pushing this war all the time decided to go with, it was a Tomahawk, and that must mean that somehow the dirty Iranians actually got their hand on a U.S. Tomahawk, and this is a scandal of epic proportions. Because there's absolutely no way it was a U.S. Tomahawk. Keep that. It had to have been Iran who did this. So then they moved to, it was a Tomahawk. Trump says Iran has Tomahawks, and therefore there's a scandal happening here where Iran got a Tomahawk from Raytheon and hit their own school with a U.S. Tomahawk, and that's the most likely scenario that happened. where Yashar Ali said,
"You're digging yourself a deeper hole."
That's the problem, says the Tomahawk is manufactured by only one company, Raytheon, and if the Islamic Republic possesses them, it means they either obtained them illegally, which would be a scandal of epic proportions, or purchased them under a State Department export license, which has not happened. Let's go to that was it. Let's get to number 9 now. Move on from the Tomahawk thing. Keep moving here. Number 9 is short-term pain for long-term gain. And this started kicking up over the weekend because, as many of you notice, I'm sure, if you've gone to get gas is more expensive right now. And that's not good, especially for an administration that has been boasting about cheap gas prices. How many clips have we seen?
$1.89.
Trump out there. Yeah, in some states, it's even under $2 a gallon.
Which, by the way, Brittany's parents just went to Florida a couple weeks ago, and literally, I think the lowest they paid was like $1.49 somewhere in Alabama.
That's a lot of Kroger points.
Probably close to Greenbow.
Yeah.
No, it was just at the gas station.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that hard to believe.
He sent me a picture of it.
Huh. How about that? What year was the picture from? Yeah, the gas station that I always go to by my house before this whole thing happened, when prices were at their lowest, was around $2.30. $2.40 a gallon, and I filled up this morning for $3.40 a gallon. So myself personally, it's gone up $1. And for someone who said, for an administration talking about how important that was, they've got to get the message across to people that you need to accept the high prices, that this war is so important that we should all be willing to pay higher prices for everything to defeat the Iranian threat. That's the message they have to get across. This kicked off with a post from Donald Trump on Truth Social. Says short-term oil prices, which will drop rapidly when the destruction of the Iran nuclear threat is over, is a very small price to pay for USA and world safety and peace.
Yeah. Small price for your wallet.
Only fools would think differently. And so that's Trump putting out the message to the MAGA bots. Like, this is the directive. Of course, this is a small price to pay. Of course, you should be willing to pay higher prices because that's how grave of a threat this was. And we should all do our patriotic duty to give Exxon more money so we can fight another forever war in the Middle East. Where if it's going to turn out anywhere close to what they want to turn out, that'll have to be the most miraculous thing the U.S. government's done. And I don't know how long.
History.
Yeah. It's like, it's just not a thing. This post that was dumb. People criticizing people complaining about the gas prices. Oh, suddenly $4 a gallon's too much. We did this during all 4 years of Biden. A couple weeks of this ain't the end.
The reason a lot of people voted for Trump is because they didn't want to continue the Biden economy.
Josh says, quote, Dear Ben, I've been watching a lot of your adversarial interviews lately, and I've noticed that once they...
I don't know why Ben Shapiro thinks he can just come in and start talking.
This is our show.
Anytime he wants.
It's not your show.
Okay. Here's a little montage of the talking points that went out.
This is a short-term disruption for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain be for long-term gain.
We're going to have some short-term pain with long-term gain.
Short-term pay for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain, yes, but we've got some long-term gain. Short-term spike for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain for American consumers. We may have to deal with that in the short term.
Short-term and temporary.
Temporary, short-term pain.
It's going to suck in the short term.
Some short-term pain.
Short-term pain. We have to focus on the short term.
Short-term.
Short-term. Short-term. Short-term and long-term.
Short-term blip. Hopefully this is a short-term pain. Short-term is highly outweighed of the long-term benefit.
Some short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain.
Yeah, so you guys get the talking point there. This is not something that I wanted. You know what would be great, though? You know, it would be really great. And I think that we should look into doing this someday. Since we're asking the American people to endure a short-term pain for a long-term gain, which is what that entire clip was saying, I think we should have some sort of way of seeing if that is a sacrifice the American people are willing to make in order to stop this Iranian threat. I just think there's a way we should check in on this. And I'm going to try and propose this to some people in government sometime, but there could be like a system where we don't want like a direct democratic vote on stuff, but if we could group people in the segments of the population and like we'll vote on someone to represent us and what we need, what we want our government to do or to not do. We can send them to Washington. And then what we'd have is we get all those people together. I don't know how many it would take, like 435 of them or something like that in one. And then you have another one's maybe got 100. And we have them.
You'd separate them out so that you could have more debate.
Separately, yeah. And you have them vote based on what their district wants them to do, what their district, how their district wants them to vote on whether or not this is a sacrifice that the people of their district are willing to make in order to stop this threat. And so then you have them vote, and then you go do the thing that causes all of this to happen.
Is this like a new business idea you're coming up with?
Yeah, it's kind of thing. It's like an agreement.
Sounds novel.
Yeah.
If
just see if people want to do that. I don't know.
The live group, New Guy Josh is saying that would never work. It sounds anti-American.
That is me. That I hate America. What everyone just heard right there is, I know it's what you're thinking, and I was anti-Semitic at the same time, right? That's ridiculous. How I hate America and the Jew.
It'd be weird to think. It'd be weird to think that like the people's representatives, so like the people have a voice because they have representatives in Washington that could then like do a real-time poll on whether or not the people wanted something like this.
But like you probably, because people are always changing and everything, and people are moving and moving in, moving out, moving in. You probably have to pick a new person like every couple of years, something like that. You know,
to see if they would.
Well, because the body of people are changing, so see if they want the same representative, and because that's the case, you wouldn't want to authorize the government to take these actions for more than a term of a couple of years. Probably because the people's representation is changing at that time. Facts on the ground change all kinds of stuff. I don't know. I'll have to come up and see if there's a way to write this down.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't think there is.
Yeah. I wonder how many people are going to get your sarcasm.
If they don't get,
if you don't understand it, he's describing the literal founding of America.
I really hope that wasn't necessary to be said.
Yeah.
But it might have been.
It sounds like you just hate Trump.
Oh, yeah. That's what it is. I'm a never Trumper.
Yeah.
I'm a Democrat. So you just heard.
Yeah.
Basically a commie lib.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, number whatever this is, Lindsey Graham. He's got his own section. We played a couple of these clips earlier in the week. Thank you, Lindsey, for sending us some more clips throughout the week. And so we got a few. Here's some Lindsey Graham clips from over the last week.
And we're going to win. Israel and the United States, you just wait to see what comes in the next 2 weeks.
The next 2 weeks meaning what?
We're going to blow the hell out of these people. This regime is in a death row now. It is going to be on its knees. It's going to fall. And when it falls, we're going to have peace like no other time. We're going to have prosperity unlike anyone could ever imagine. Peace brings prosperity. You can't do it by talking. The Democrats criticize this operation. They didn't do a damn thing. These men and women in the military should make us all proud.
He just loves talking about people being on their knees. That's really weird. Peace brings prosperity, and you can't do it by talking. Just can't do it. It's not a possible thing to do. Okay, here's a little bit more of that conversation. We played this on Monday.
I'm not looking for a fair fight. If we get in a fight, I want to win it. I want to win it quick. I'm in Miami. You see this hat? Free Cuba. Stay tuned. Yep. The liberation of Cuba is upon us. It's just a matter of time now. You see this hat? Make Iran great. President Trump said the only way to make Iran great is for the people to take over. We're marching through the world. We're cleaning out the bad guys. We're going to have relationships with new people that will make us prosperous and safe. I've never seen anybody like it. This is Ronald Reagan plus. Donald Trump is resetting the world in a way nobody could have dreamed of a year ago. He is the greatest commander-in-chief of all time. Our military is the best of all time. Iran is going down, and Cuba is next.
Bless.
God. whatever drugs he's on. I like what Jake said from the Fed Haters Club, joingmail.com. He summed up what Lindsey Graham said. War is peace.
War is peace.
That's what he's trying to sell you on. War is peace.
I love how is it like his number 2 president is Ronald Reagan, but I seem to remember just a whole lot of diplomacy that happened between us and the Soviet Union under Reagan. You know, there wasn't really a nuclear war that happened. You know, I mean, we had like a Cold War for a long time, but I thought Reagan was great because he ended that. And we didn't all die in a big white flash.
Well, Reagan kept saying peace through strength.
Yeah. He declared it.
Yeah.
That's what he said. Here's a little bit more Lindsey Graham.
Up to our allies, step up,
It's
get
funny,
our
we don't
air
need to say
bases out
much.
of Spain. They're not reliable. Move all those airplanes to a country that would let us use them when we're threatened by a regime like Iran. To our friends in Spain, man, you have lost your way. I don't want to do business with you anymore. I want our air bases out of Spain into a country that will let us use them. To our Arab friends, I've tried to help you construct a new Mideast. You need to up your game here. I can't go to South Carolina and say we're fighting and you won't publicly fight. What you're doing behind the scenes, that has to stop. The double dealing of the Arab world when it comes to this stuff needs to end. I go back to South Carolina. I'm asking them to send their sons and daughters over to the Mideast. What I want you to do in the Mideast, to our friends in Saudi Arabia and other places, step forward and say, this is my fight too. I join America.
Actually, I agree with him on that one, that the people who are actually affected by this are the ones who need to step up.
What I find strange about that whole thing, though, he said, I won't do business in Spain anymore. Like, what business do you have going on in Spain, Lindsey Graham?
I mean, you know, he wanted to be president there for a minute. And
Yeah.
I think because he knows that he was very instrumental in kicking off this war and potentially destroying us all, that he feels very powerful right now. And so he's decided to go around just shooting his mouth off more so than normal because he just feels, he feels like he's really running the show at the moment. Here's a little bit more. He's going to make a mutual defense agreement. Let me see.
Finally, to my friends in Saudi Arabia, I've been your biggest champion. I think the Crown Prince has taken Saudi Arabia in a completely different direction in a good way. But here's what I want to say to Saudi Arabia tonight. I'm willing to do a mutual defense agreement with your country to give you protection in perpetuity. Under the agreement I've been pushing, and I hope we can continue to talk about, if you're attacked by Iran, we would go to war for you. Finally, to my...
How is he making these agreements? Here's what I'm willing to do. Who are you? You're one senator.
Here's a little 17-second clip. Could be taken
Why does
out
he keep saying it in the first person?
I don't know. But like I just said, I think he feels like he has a lot of power right now because he was so instrumental in getting this whole thing going. So I guess that's all. I guess that's it.
all the anti-Seminites, to all the isolationists. I don't believe. Forget it. I'm not with you. I'm with Israel. I will be with Israel to our dying day. They're the best ally we could hope for. So we have a commander-in-chief in President Trump, who I think is Ronald Reagan plus. All
Ronald Reagan plus.
Plus.
Yeah. You know, when they put the pluses on stuff, it costs more.
He is Ronald Reagan LGBTQIA plus.
Exactly. You do the math. How about number 11? Oh, this is a real easy one. You guys could go listen to yesterday's episode about Gallrein. All we're going to do is play this nice 32-second clip of Gallrein doing his thing.
I hope the fake news gets this. Tom Massey stands with the ladies of The View. Tom Massey stands with the ladies of The View. Mr. President, we stand with you. Fight, fight, fight! USA!
God, he's so awkward. He kind of moves like a robot.
I'm telling you, that is the greatest candidate.
He read the teleprompter twice.
Trump had to say that. There's a bunch of clips going around of like his face he made during part of what Gallrein was saying, but Trump knows what to do. He gets up there and he overwrites the code in everyone's brain where they were like, it's kind of weird and awkward. He says, I'm telling you that was the greatest candidate. And so that overwrites what they had just felt in the moment, and they remember that he was the greatest candidate. afterwards. Pretty smart. So that one's real quick. Number 12, go back to another episode, Wednesday,
I think. Yeah.
Possibly. We talked about the September 2025 spending by the Department of War. And honestly, the dumbest thing about this, what I find even dumber than the whole thing, well, maybe not even dumber, is how everyone just went with the lobster and the steak. That is just the dumbest thing to be upset about on this. And it's almost as if they wanted to provide cover for the real problem here, that everyone just went with the lobster and the steak. Okay, they spent a lot of money on nice foods. Listen, you're never going to win that argument. You're never going to make the arguments like, oh, the people fighting and defending Israel shouldn't have good food.
But by the way, there was a fraction of the spending, even compared to furniture.
Like the story was they spent $93.4 billion in September, and everyone is talking about a $22 million chunk of that spending. Okay? That's not enough. That's not a big, and it's food, and it's nice food. And you're not going to get a lot of people upset about feeding members of the military good food. It just ain't going to happen. All right? I'm sorry. Not going to work.
But if you spend $500 million on furniture.
Yeah, that's $250 million in September alone on furniture, which is far away and above the typical cheap $34 million a month on furniture. Now, all of that, by the way, added up together, still just comes out to like $500 million. Okay. Most of this was grants and contracts. Probably most of those didn't even happen. They just did it because it was September and they're about to lose their budget. That's it. That's the biggest scandal in the whole thing. We made it all the way to the last 5 days of September, and the Department of War was just chugging along just fine. And instead of allowing the American taxpayers to not be stolen from quite as much the following year, they shelled out $50 billion in 5 days in grants and contracts. That's where people should be upset about that and realize that's the way the entire government operates.
All of them.
It's a bunch of stuff that you didn't actually need, that they decided to buy wasteful crap at the very last week before the budget reset for the next year. And then they told you, well, there's just no way we could survive with a lower budget than this.
We need more money.
Yeah.
The problem is more money.
I'm like, well, how much would it cost to fund you for 360 days? Why don't we just do that instead?
And this is the whole, like, the billionaires need to pay their fair share. It's like, well, what do you mean? They're wasting money. They're wasting your money. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Some of the most ridiculous things, because I get the food and like, I would love to have Alaskan king crab and, lobster and stuff like that. I get it. I get more upset about a $100,000 grand piano for the Air Force Chief of Staff's home. I get upset about that. I get upset about a $26,000 violin or $21,000 handmade Japanese flute. I get upset about stuff like that more so than I get upset about the food. And then I want to know where all the furniture is. I want names and I want locations and I want items. And I want to know if Wayfair is involved in this. I want to know which big furniture company is getting all this money, whether or not there's actually any furniture getting delivered. I want to know if this is some kind of hidden economic stimulus that we're trying to do right now. I want to know about the furniture.
With the amount of furniture they purchased, there would just be stacks of furniture in every building. I mean, just imagine, like, how many couches and chairs and all this stuff, like how many of those items, like to spend.
They're probably stockpiling to rebuild Iran.
$50 million a month. Not even the $250 they spent in September. Previous years, by the way, $400 million in September on furniture.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? Where does said furniture exist? Do we have warehouses full of furniture?
I don't know.
Who's making this furniture?
I don't know.
We buying it from China? Is it American
this has
made?
Got to be some kind of massive.
Are we propping
money
up the Amish? Is this Amish made furniture?
That's how we keep them peaceful. We buy their furniture. That's what it is. It's a payoff.
I feel like as you're walking down the street, you would just see chairs sitting in the sidewalk.
Just furniture everywhere.
How much furniture has been purchased over the last...
Think about how much of an increase in the price of wood they've caused.
It's crazy.
Okay, last thing, which has 5 things in it, but we're going to breeze over them really quick. This is Socialist Economics. This is number 13. A couple things here. The state of Washington is working on passing, and I guess they passed it. I don't know if it's gotten signed. I'm sorry. I did not do my due diligence on this whole story. A millionaire's tax on incomes over $1 million, which is causing some people to be rather upset. One of the people would be Howard Schultz, who is the Starbucks CEO, and he's apparently moving to Florida, and Starbucks, I saw, is opening up a big office in Nashville. I don't know if you saw that. He still says that like Starbucks World headquarters is going to be in Seattle, but it sounds like they're moving a bunch of people to Nashville. I think they're trying to placate the people so they don't riot while they're moving stuff out, that kind of thing. And so they're leaving. So power to the people, hammer and sickle in the profile name. Says former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz announces he's leaving Seattle and moving to Miami. This comes on the same day Washington State passed a 9.9% millionaire's tax on incomes over $1 million. Billionaires would rather run away like cowards than pay their fair share.
This is what people they just don't get it. They just don't understand.
Which I'm glad. I love to see people leaving. Now, Howard Schultz, probably a pretty hypocritical move. This guy's been backing up these crazy-ass lefties his whole career. That's freaking Starbucks, for crying out loud. He employs half of them, all right? And so he's been feeding the other part of the population soy milk this whole time, making them gay.
And now that it's coming to his doorstep, he's going to run off down to Miami's. Hang out in the Everglades.
Before the
Probably with bimbo women on his yacht.
For the socialists listening, this is absolutely what will happen. And this is why people like Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna are trying to do a nationwide wealth tax on rich people, because they know, they accept, and they have said it out loud. Yeah, the rich people are just going to leave. So we got to tax the entire country.
Yeah. And by the way, they'll leave the country.
They'll do that too.
Yeah.
They'll find a way to put their money.
You ever heard of this place called Monaco?
Elsewhere.
I mean,
we're going to Monaco. All right, next thing. This person was upset. Got a lot of traction on this post. It says, so basically, companies pay YouTube to show ads, and we pay YouTube to not show ads. And this is a big awakening moment. They're showing the...
Is that Inception?
This Inception, which doesn't apply to the thing he's saying. Like in that one, he's waking up from a dream and trying to figure out if it's real. It's not like a realization moment or anything. It doesn't really make any sense, but people are using it for that.
Like IQ lowering, or is it just because we do dumb bleep every week that I think that people are getting dumber?
Well, we are in a competition to find things that are dumber every week. And so every week's got to be dumber than the next.
Yeah.
But I do think, I try to remind myself of this a lot. There is, on a lot of these posts that we make fun of and a lot of beliefs that people have, there is just a big IQ problem. And I'm not saying that to be mean, okay? I love retarded people. That's fine. But I think one of the big issues we have is an IQ problem. And some of the people, like, they are really smart, but they're so they're so just directed and controlled by their emotions and their hatred for a group of rich people, and either their envy or their victimhood or whatever that they want to have.
Uh-oh.
What's up?
I did some research real quick.
Oh no.
The research does indicate that the average IQ scores in the United States have declined, reversing a long-term upward trend known as the Flynn effect. A study published in 2023 showed that American IQ scores dropped in 4 out of 5 measured areas. Lost 2 points from 100 down to 98.
Well, don't worry. We're just going to have the AI take care of it.
So
I feel like they got idiocracy wrong. It's really that we just decided to have AI take care of everything, and then eventually we broke the systems that powered the AI, and then we couldn't figure out how to do anything. And so maybe that's another version of that. Okay, this person is upset about the fact that companies pay YouTube to have ads on there, or you pay YouTube so you don't see the ads. And they can't figure out why this is happening at all. People are saying there's just some big capitalist scheme per usual. This person says it's like selling drugs and building rehabs at the same time. This one says modern business model, create the problem and then sell the relief. Let's see, I got another one in here. Oh, they said X is starting to do the same thing, of course. And there are people in the comments of this post that do try to point out the obvious scenario, which is that it costs a shit ton of money to run YouTube, and you can't just have it for free. Like, what, you guys realize how much money, how many servers, what kind of teams of clods are out there running this stuff, which takes servers for them too. It takes literal money to do this stuff.
And by the way, if you want it for free, you got to watch some ads.
Yeah. Which you can say it's not free. It takes some of your time to watch the ads, you know, but that's how they end up getting the money to run the platform for you. They're not just going to go spend hundreds of millions or billions of dollars for this service and then just say, well, here it is. Here's all the videos. There you go. You're welcome.
A company might do it at first to gain users.
Get users, yeah.
Yes. And then of course they can sell that user base to advertisers.
And then that's what they're going to do. And so, yes, you're either going to have companies pay you to show advertisements.
This reminds me of that congressional hearing where I can't remember who it was, but they were asking Mark Zuckerberg, like, well, how do you make money? It's like, we sell ads, Senator. Yeah, but how do you make money? Like, how do you turn a profit? We sell ads.
Yeah, we sell,
Senator.
We do. People, advertisers pay us.
Yeah, I know that. You sell ads, but how do you make money? It's like, it's the same. And by the way, that guy's a senator. So that shows you where we're at in America.
So this is another thing we can make fun of really quick. There is a video posted by a Dunkin Donuts employee of them getting rid of a bunch of extra donuts at the end of the night, which, as you can imagine, in the comments section, it's just a clear representation of capitalism, trying to deny food to people, throwing away perfectly good food because they just have to get money for it. And that's the only thing that they care about. They'd rather destroy it than give it to people who need it or sell it at a discount or something like that. I understand having that initial reaction to things. There's many reasons, though, that this happens. And it's not because the person who runs Dunkin' Donuts sits there coming up with ways to screw over the poor and to come up with ways to do evil things or whatever. That's not what happens. You could say there's many other reasons. Number one, many cities, municipalities, counties, states even, I don't know, it's illegal to just give this food to poor people.
By the way, that's at the behest of the government regulations.
Yeah.
Usually the local health department.
Mm-hmm. Second,
if you've never worked in a restaurant before, you don't understand this, but like food has an expiration date, especially fresh food that's made. It doesn't last very long if you don't treat it properly. And so to avoid the population getting sick, they make these rules and regulations that you have to toss food at a certain time.
Now that could be like, that's probably part of it in some certain areas. I won't say it's the only thing. There's one that people just aren't going to like very much, but I think it's a big deal. I don't know if you remember this from Olive Garden when we worked there, but there was a policy. If you say you accidentally make a pot of, Alfredo, something like that, you can't eat it. Like, you can't say, oh man, accidentally made that. I guess we'll give it to one of the servers and they can eat it for their dinner. You can't do that. Why not? Because what would happen is people would intentionally make extra stuff so they could just give food to their friends.
They would find the loophole.
Yes. That's what they would do.
And humans find loopholes all the time.
And if you're going to sell the discounted items the next day, or if you are going to say just set up feeding the homeless afterwards, eventually what will happen is people will intentionally make too much food so they can either feel good feeding the homeless all the time, or they can give it to their friends to take home at night, or they can take home the extra at the end of the night, and you're just giving away a bunch of money. The actual incentive here is for you to not make more food than you need to make, to actually look at your numbers and say, well, how many donuts of each kind of variety do we sell, and to not use more resources than it takes to feed your potential customers that day. That way you actually conserve the resources that it takes to make that food. That's what's actually happening. Okay? And yeah, if you were going to decide to feed the poor or whatever, that'd be great. If you're going to do it outside the store, your store is just going to turn into a block full of poor people waiting for donuts every day, which then you're going to lose business probably. So yeah, just, it's not that capitalism is this terrible evil thing. That's not the case. All right, we skipped over a couple things. Everyone, let's get the votes in.
Get your votes in.
We'll spend the last half an hour repeating what all of the options were. Although I think we did a pretty good job considering the amount of things there were. just them.
Yeah.
Number one was the situation in NYC. That was Mamdani's statement. That was CNN's post about what could have been God, that was a ridiculous post. Number two, what people are saying about AK guy. Number three, the Commonwealth attorney saying that we need ISIS gun control. Number four, the Virginia lawmaker with the gun, pistol, telescope silencers, that kind of thing. Number five, Loomer saying clearly it was Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens that caused this to happen at that synagogue. Number six, the IDF rape story. God. Number seven, Ben Shapiro. Number eight, Tomahawk-gate. Number nine, short-term pain for long-term gain. Number 10, Lindsey Graham. Number 11, Ed Gallrein. Number 12, Department of War spending. Number 13, Socialist econ. That's a lot of stuff.
All right, y'all,
So
get
let's
your
go
votes,
get some votes
in. It's kind of spread out right now. We don't have a full.
Well, we're spreading
somebody's-
it between a lot of people.
Somebody's
you know?
somebody is becoming the front runner. So get those votes in. While you're voting, I need to tell you, if you're watching on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe. And even if you disagree, comment in there. Nate will respond to your comment.
Actually, especially if you disagree.
And tell you you're an idiot. If so.
If they're,
and
yeah.
maybe some other things.
Yeah.
So have a YouTube fight with Nate. That's always fun. It's always fun to, especially because you can be anonymous.
That is
Just
true.
A crazy username.
People are especially mean on YouTube.
Come on the show and just be as ridiculous as you can in the YouTube comments, and we'll love you for it.
Yep.
So visit the links in the show notes to support the sponsors that support this show. If you want to throw some money at us, or you can join the Fed Haters Club, join GML.com. It looks like
The winner,
Lindsey Graham.
The winner's Lindsey Graham.
He said a bunch of dumb stuff
That
all
was
in
a
a row
lot of dumb
for like the whole week.
I think he's a national security threat. Honestly, I don't think he should be
Also,
allowed to speak.
How does Trump not call him afterwards and be like, dude, you can't be saying that you're going to make these deals. What are you talking about? Shut up.
Maybe he's actually out there, trying to float ideas that Trump wants to do. Maybe he's the surrogate right now.
Maybe Trump is giving him these talking points, or somebody in the administration.
Yeah.
To see what the poll is on America after Lindsey Graham says these things. According to the Good Morning Liberty cohort, he's retarded. So
could be it.
Yeah.
There's also that.
All right. Well, if y'all enjoyed that, then share it around. Do what I said. If you don't, Nate's going to be really upset. I still don't care, because I don't care what people think. And I've ingrained that into my soul at this point, that I just don't care what people think. So you do whatever you want. But if I were you, I would do what I said, because I said it.
That's as good a reason as any.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
If you do all that, then we'll be back again on Monday. Until then, I hope you have a good day, a good weekend, and a good morning, Liberty.